Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you, Melissa, for being here in person and for all of those who are watching the recording. Today is the Holding Space workshop, and this is something that kind of came to my heart just as a way to, go through the holidays and have a better scope of love for our family in a little bit more of a conscious way. There's this whole discipline of conscious communication and how to get through and nonviolent communication, how to get through conflict in good ways and stuff. But we're going to start today with just basically listening. So, for any of y'all who don't know me, I am Brittany Joy Avalette. I go by Joy now because it's the lineage name from my grandmother. Love you, Grandma. and I'm a pranayama and yoga teacher, and I love to teach about empowerment and sovereignty through various mechanisms like workshops like this. I do one-on-one coaching, retreats, but it's important to me for people to dig into their sovereignty and be their own healers and be empowered humans going through the earth, confident people, knowing yourself, knowing that you have the tools that you need to do what you need to do. And so this is in relevance to our relationships. So this today is for the others in our lives and developing a little bit of tools to just be good friends, be good family members, and be good humans. So we're gonna drop in for like a little meditation for like 5 minutes here and just come into our heart space so that we're attentive and softened and open. So you can find yourself some comfortable space. And I always start all my calls like this because it feels like a good way to just be really present with each other. So finding a good comfortable seat and a nice tall spine. Prana loves a tall spine. We're gonna bring our shoulders back, a little chest forward. Hands can just rest on your knees, or you can mudra if you want. This is the wisdom mudra. And just start to breathe. Conscious breath. So bringing the awareness to the breath. That's all conscious breathing is. So imagining as you inhale, coming from the root, rising up through the spine, slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, until we're so tall, so full of air in the lungs, all the way up to the crown. And then exhaling through the nose, slowly, bringing the crown back to the earth. See how slowly you can inhale and exhale. Deep inhale again. Getting as tall as possible. And then exhaling. As you exhale, invitation to open the mouth and sigh. Allowing yourself to get heavy and drop into your seat. We'll do one more like that. Inhaling all the way up, tall spine, and exhaling. Allowing that little sigh of relief, that little feeling of relaxation, and allowing yourself to find the contact with the earth through the legs. And so now bringing the attention into the body. I'm going to do a quick little body scan here. So as I move through the body with my voice, follow my voice with your mind, bringing attention to each of these body parts and seeing if there's anything there for you, seeing if there's any sensation, and really allowing yourself to not be attached to these sensations and to just move on. So we're going to start with the toes. So bringing the attention, the mind's eye to the toes. Consciously breathing, moving up to the shins, to the knees, to your thighs, and to the hips, the sacral chakra, the root chakra area. Take a moment there, take a breath. Moving up to the sacral chakra, just above the belly button. This is the place where our confidence sits, our ego, our personal power, will, coming up to the heart chakra and all the physical organs that are behind there, thalamus gland. Sit with the heart for a moment. And breathing into the heart. Just coming into this space. Being acquainted with the body. And then allowing the mind's eye to run from the heart to the fingertips. So this is your healing center, your heart all the way to the fingertips. What do you feel as you move through the arms? Any sensations arise? And then follow the fingertips back to the heart. Come up to your throat chakra, Vishuddha chakra, the center of blue. This is where we're going to focus today. This is our truth. This is the part of us that needs to be unwound for us to be able to set boundaries, speak truth, to listen well. It's this blue light that shines from here. Bring the attention now to the shoulders, to the neck, the back of the neck. So we were at the throat, now we're at the back of the neck. And then moving up the back of the head till you get to the top, your crown chakra, your pineal gland, sorry, your pituitary gland. Part of you that controls all the circadian rhythms, your sleep, your divine connection. And then coming back around through the top of the head down to the third eye gaze, this Ajna chakra, this center for our intuition, our inner knowing, your pineal gland. So this is also where we're going to tap into today. And as we continue into this workshop to hold space for others, it's important to be able to tap into the intuition, to understand and to intuit what the other needs from the heart, from the third eye, and when we speak, coming from the heart, throat chakra, all this deep connection. So now glazing over the eyes with your mind's eye, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. Bringing the attention back to the heart space, taking a couple breaths here. And then opening the eyes and welcoming yourself back into the space. Always looking around, it helps our nervous system to feel safe when we know our environment, there's no threats. Our ancient biology. So now we have officially dropped in to the heart. And this is where we want to be moving from, especially in the context of holding space. So what is holding space? So in my frame of reference, in my practice, for me, this is a lot about listening, deep listening. So that is what we're going to mostly focus on today. So this is there's also a really important aspect here of non-judgment. So you're immersing yourself in the heart space to listen without judgment, to allow yourself to feel what the other feels. So this is your empathy, giving the other person the space to feel what's happening inside of them, which actually can oftentimes give them the ability to process this on their own. So we're setting a container, this aspect of holding space, we're setting a container of safety for the other person to have their experience, to be held and to be seen. And a lot of our needs as humans come from this desire to be held and to be seen. So there's this Zen parable of this master that says to the student, pours some salt in some water, hands the water to the student. The student drinks it, and the Zen master says, "Well, how does that taste?" And the student says, "Oh, it's bitter. It's very salty." And so the Zen master brings the student to a lake and pours some salt in the lake and asks the student to drink. And the student says, how, and the master says, how does it taste now? And the student says, it's fresh, you know? So this is like kind of the concept of what we're doing. We're creating this lake to dilute this person's, not in a negative way, but to allow this space to fill, to dilute the pain, to dilute the suffering, and to be able to give some freshness to this situation. So, like I said, this is a lot, mostly just listening, active listening. So there's some components to this that are really, really important. We've all done this, where we're listening with the intention to respond. And this is not active listening. This is listening with the intention to respond. So what we want to do when we're listening is empty ourselves, quiet our own mind. Maybe you don't have the ability to sit and meditate before, but if you have these tools to sit and to empty your mind out, what we're trying to get to is a place of non-judgment. So we're allowing the other person to have their experience. And just like a container holds water, just like a glass holds water, we're holding that experience for them. So there's no judgment coming from us. And we're not sitting there waiting to give advice. We're not sitting there waiting to share a relatable story. We're sitting there and just holding that space, very literally. It sounds kind of like woo woo, and we're like, what is this holding space thing? In all reality, it literally is like, you're just like, here's the box between you and I, and we're making it safe. We want people to feel safe around us. So this is something that for me is so important in my practice with my clients and with my friends, that I want people to feel safe around me. And so that's why this has been kind of like a passionate topic for me as of late. So how can we make safer spaces for each other? How can we create spaces where we can process our emotions, with our own wisdom, with our own body wisdom? That's why we use the body scan to drop in today, because our body holds so many answers for us. And if someone can just be there and witness us in this state of processing, that can really present a lot of answers on its own. So when we're quieting our mind to hold space, we're emptying out our own thoughts and belief. It's our nature to want to think, and it's our mind's nature to want to judge something that's coming through or find a solution. But we're looking for this state of meditation that we can cling to, and listening to the words. We're listening, and we're watching facial expression. We're watching eye contact. We're really picking up on cues, using our own wisdom, picking up on cues of how the other person really feels. And so eye contact. We're not waiting to the story to end, blah, blah, blah. Tapping in. So this will give us all of these clues on what they're feeling. And so the next step of that, once they're finished telling their story, is reflecting back and asking for permission if you want to give advice. So that means, reflecting back can start with, so what I'm hearing is, so maybe someone tells a long story. They're telling a huge experience that's happened in their life. So at the end of that experience, what is it that's important out of this? There's a lot that's been said. So if you want to be clear when someone has finished telling their story, you can say, so what I'm hearing is you're not feeling seen in your relationship, and you would like more intimacy outside of sex. This is an example. This is reflecting back, like, okay, you just told me a 10-minute story. I'm trying to hone in on what you're actually feeling. And so that gives the other person the ability to say, no, that's not right. Or yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly how I'm feeling. And so reflecting those feelings back, and that can be, that makes the other person feel great. That makes the other person feel seen. And then you're making sure there's no assumptions, and that everyone is understood. And this can be a great tool for conflict resolution as well, because if you and I are in a conflict and we want to be in this state of deep listening while I'm receiving your side of the story, okay, so now what I'm hearing, like, what is it that you want from me? I want to be clear about that, so this reflecting back piece is really beautiful, and it's a very beautiful piece of conscious communication, and a great tool. So there's that. And then the asking for permission piece. This is something that, in the context of if I'm coaching someone and they're here for my advice, I don't necessarily do this. But in the context of friendship, we should always be asking if it's the advice that they want. Sometimes people just want to be heard. Sometimes people just want to be seen, and they're not looking for a retort. They're not looking for anything other than just to feel like someone is listening to what their emotional experience has been. So saying, do you want my advice? Do you want my opinion? That one sentence can clear up a lot of things. And I've had experiences in friendships recently where I didn't want the advice and I was given bad advice. And so, and I knew it was bad advice. And in one situation, I listened to the bad advice. I followed the bad advice to my own detriment in a situation where I was like, oh my God, I knew it. And I didn't even want the advice. I didn't need it. I knew in that situation that I knew what to do. I took I listened to the advice, the unsolicited advice, and then I messed up the situation by listening to it. So ask, ask. It's so simple, and it's such a it's and it can really create trust too, and it's not like, you're creating trust in the situation because you're saying, I'm not trying to give you something that you don't want. I'm not here to toot my own horn. I'm not here to just think that I'm this wise being. I'm really here for you. I really want to know what you want, and I want to be able to fulfill your needs. So ask permission and reflect back. These are great tools for deep listening, and when you're not sitting there just trying to think of what you want to say next, it's a lot easier to do these things. You're sitting there watching this person and their cues, physically, maybe tears are coming, maybe, whatever the emotional experience is, you're watching and you're holding that, and then you're saying, is this what you're feeling? And that person is going to feel so seen and so wonderfully heard because of that. All right, the final point that in this my 3 steps. So quiet your own mind, step 1. Step 2, reflect back and ask for permission. And step 3 is just be quiet. Sometimes all you need to do is physically be in presence with someone. Maybe nothing needs to be said at all. And I think this helps a lot, especially with grief. When grief is being experienced, there's not a lot to say. If someone wants to share their story of grief, that can be really healing for them. But the beauty of just literally sitting beside someone and not feeling nervous. There's been times in my past history too, where you feel like you don't really know what to do. You don't really know what to give someone who's going through grief. There's nothing you can say when someone's lost their mother, or their child, or there's nothing that you're going to say that's going to make them feel better. And so this is the time when your presence is the gift. You're just being there, literally. And you can even ask someone who's going through something really tumultuous in their life, like, do you want to just go and sit and exist together? Do you want to just go and sit in the park on the park bench and not talk? Maybe that would feel so good for that person to just really be witnessed and to not be alone. And stillness and silence. And so this also, something I want to touch on here, when we're sitting there holding this space for people who are giving, body language and body cues, there's times when, and use your wisdom in this, it's very, when someone's going through a huge emotional experience where we really need to let them have their physical and emotional experience. And so there's this aspect of deep listening. And so knowing when this is appropriate and when it's not, where you're giving no cues. So if I'm listening to you and you're telling your story, I'm neutral. So neutral expression. And the philosophy behind this is that emotional experiences come in a wave. So when we are experiencing, say, sadness, it comes up and it comes up and it peaks. And this is where when it's going up is where it starts to feel really, really, really shitty. But what needs to happen is we need to get all the way to the peak of that experience so that it can then drop off. And oftentimes when we decide to intervene, give a hug, give Kleenex, wipe tears, this will stunt this peak and not allow it to valley. And these emotional experiences, this is when they get stuck, is when they're not felt all the way through. So we want the emotional experience to be felt all the way through and to release. And so when someone is going through something very serious, not that you can't like put a Kleenex box beside someone, but there's several things going, What we're doing is we're affirming that person's story, right? Maybe that's not what the most helpful thing is. Maybe the most helpful thing is just to maintain eye contact, to be super present, but not to be giving all these cues and going, giving hugs, trying to console. And that's such a hard thing, especially as women. I believe that we are natural nurturers. We want to hold someone in their experience. But there's times when that's just going to hinder their healing. So there's that. So when is it appropriate to do that? You're really going to have to tap into your inner wisdom. If someone is really going through it, especially if they're really, really crying or something like that, this is the time when it's generally a better idea to let them finish that experience, and then maybe ask if they would like a hug, or ask if you can touch them. So there's that aspect. The other aspect is when just holding someone's hand, maybe it's in this moment of just silence, sitting silently on a park bench together, and not, and maybe a hand touching someone is going to be really healing for them, and so knowing when to step forth and when to not, and to just exist and be this safe container, that's going to come up to your experience, and knowing your friends, or knowing, just witnessing and seeing what seems appropriate in that moment. So these tools and these tips will often allow people to be able to kind of burn through their own experience, to process it and to solve their own problems. That's what we want to give people the opportunity to do as conscious communicators, as wise friends, as family members who really care about healing experiences. So this allowing people to use their own body wisdom and their own experience to teach them. And sometimes, we've all had those experiences where you talk to your friend about something, and again, sometimes we just want to vent, right? Like sometimes we just want to go to our friend and vent. And those situations, we're not looking for advice. So we've all, I've had those situations where I just, want to be heard. And so sometimes in that aspect of being heard, I have figured out what the solution to my own problem is. I'm just being witnessed, my best friend sitting there listening. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I sound ridiculous. Oh, like that when that came out of my mouth, that sounded a lot different than it did in my head. And now I'm good. So like sometimes in smaller situations, that's all we really need, And there's so many layers to our human experience. There's so many layers to our emotions, and there's layers to our healing. So it's going to take practice and wisdom, and encourage you over the holidays to like use these times where we're kind of maybe visiting family members we haven't seen in a while, or maybe interacting with someone we haven't seen, a friend we haven't seen in a while, who's gone through loss, or who's gone through whatever kind of suffering or pain that they've experienced through the year. It can be a beautiful time to take up these tools to use to practice being a safe space, being a good listener, actively listening, deep listening, what is it that this person has said, reflecting it back to them, asking if they want advice, and do this with love. Make sure this is coming from your heart. Also, honor when you do not want to hold space for somebody. Honor that time when you just don't have it in you. If your energy isn't charged up, don't give it away. If you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you've, been in your practice and you're feeling good and you're great, and if someone wants to emotionally dump on you and you're okay with that, that's fine. But also know when it is you're going to tap into your throat chakra and stand up and say that you can't hold space right now. Honor yourself, just like you honor the other. We're all connected. We're all one. And these experiences show us that, we can see in someone else these feelings. That's what empathy is. We see the feelings that we understand and that we feel in ourselves. So allowing those experiences to bring us closer together and to remind us that we are all one being. That's what yoga means, union. And union is the connection between all living things. When we honor that piece of universal consciousness that is inside of me, that is inside of you, that is inside of every tree, every animal, every speck of dust, vibrating all together. So can we vibrate together? Can we make safety for each other, and can we listen to each other, and can we all get a little bit more emotionally intelligent together? Because that's what they don't teach us in school. Emotional intelligence. Oh my goodness. So as far as getting back to the idea of conscious communication, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. That can be a huge piece of that. Emotional intelligence, being an active listener, and ensuring your language is respectful and neutral. If you want to look more into that kind of a thing, there's a great philosophy called nonviolent communication that talks a lot about taking the blame out of when we're speaking to each other. So that's a really good way to do conflict resolution. So maybe I'll do another workshop on that at some time. But for now, I think this is enough. This is a great feeling of completion in that. Do you have any questions, Melissa? Do you have any comments or anything you'd like to add?
No, it was all wonderful. I took away all kinds of neat little things. I have some friends, in particular, my best friend, who we have that anytime we'll call each other, we'll say, do you have time to hold space for me? And before you just blabber. And I appreciate and love that so much. Like, it's so important to be before I just unload on her or she unloads on me. And I wish that I had that with all of my friendships. But sometimes you'd be like, can you hold space for me? They're like, what? I don't even know what that means.
Right.
So it depends on the crowd I'm working with. And I really like the reflect back. My boyfriend and I, sometimes I'm not a very good listener to him. He goes off on things that I don't agree with. And instead of listening or holding space for him, I just tune out. Like I call them my mom ears. I put on my mom ears and I'm like, I'm literally not even listening to him. Like, I'm in my own deep in my own meditative state, completely blocking him out. And he doesn't even notice that I disengage. So I'm like, maybe if I recap, what I'm hearing is, then he'll realize, like, oh wait, I sound crazy. Like, I don't know. So I'm gonna try some of that with him, that recapping. It might lead to some conflicts, but sometimes that's necessary. So
amazing. Isn't it funny that sometimes it's the people we love the most that we are the worst communicators with, like with our friendships or especially with acquaintances, somebody you just meet, you're like, oh, so attentive, I'm just getting to know you, and then you go home and the person that you love, that you sleep beside, you're like, man, I can't even. And you're like, these are the times when, and it can also be challenging to like reset the communication standards in relationships that have been a certain way for a long time. It's like, how can we go into, I'm experiencing this with a friendship in my own life right now. It's about a 10-year friendship. Things are not in alignment anymore. And it's like, where do we find that? So we go in and we're going to have a conscious communication. We're going to listen to each other. We're going to do all the reflecting and see where that leaves our friendship. We have to, but taking something that, who we were when we first met is very different than who we are now. And how do we figure that out? How do we sort that out? So there's all these tools to go about, really making sure the other is seen and heard. And then in the case of this relationship that I have, that I'm dealing with, it's like maybe that taking space from each other is what's required now. And so just making sure that that's neutral and there's no hate, or there's no hate on anybody's game. It's just like, okay, I love you. And now we're going to kind of change the container of our friendship. It's going to be a little bit different. Maybe it moves a little bit less intimate. We're just going to move away. We're still in the same community. We love each other, and it is not feeling super good to, what we're doing, how it's flowing right now. It's not super aligned. So like it's interesting to try and reset boundaries and stuff with people you've known for a really long time. My friends from when I was a teenager, or went through my drinking years, my crazy years with, like, that's not the person that I am anymore. But like those are kind of the expectations, that there's expectations that person still lives in me, and maybe she does somewhere. But like, no. Reset. Let's see how we can like recreate something better. So I love that. Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing. And at the end, like truly, even if people don't realize it, all people want is for us to be present with them. Our presence is the best gift that we could ever give. Put your phone down and really look someone in the eyes. Like that is so, so needed. That is how we heal what's going on in this disconnection that's being propagated through technology. You see this huge push for all this AI stuff, and we don't know where that's going to go, but all we can do is foster the beautiful connections that we have in our own life and make sure that people feel loved. This is so important, making sure people don't feel alone, doing what we can for those when our cup is full, and if our cup is not full and we're the one that needs space held, knowing that we have that can ask for that, and you're like, I'm glad you said like you have a friend that you can do that with, and that is such a blessing sometimes. So, you just like, I need to vent. Can you hold that for me right now? Like maybe they can, maybe they've had a rough day too. Like maybe we need to do this tomorrow. Oh, so that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so as far as all that goes, we've gotten through all the things. So coming back to it, just a quick recap: quieting your own mind, active listening, making eye contact, not just waiting to speak, and doing your best to remove judgment, just like when you're meditating in your meditation practice, trying to take watch your own thoughts without judgment. Can you hold that for someone else too? Tapping in with empathy, reflecting back and asking permission before giving advice, quieting yourself, seeing if maybe the best thing to do is just sit together and be still and silent, and knowing when to give physical touch and when to try to be neutral. So these are all the little tools. I hope this helps through the holidays with friends and family, and just general, like making better relationships. Better communication means better relationships. And that's something that I'm super passionate about, something that I like to teach on. For any of you who care to go deeper into this, my program, A Sovereign Soul, is all about moving into leadership in a sovereign way and coming into your soul purpose and finding out what that means. And that does change throughout our lives. Our soul purpose can continue to change. And so if anybody wants to talk to me about one-on-one work or anything, retreats work, or doing deeper meditation work, I'm here for that. So I love you all. Love you, love you, love you. And have a beautiful day. Hold all that space. Love up on people. Let's just be better communicators and be better humans, because we got this. We can make a better world. One listen at a time. Love you, love you.